A visionary roadmap was touted by Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern as a way to unlock greater value from the force that is New Zealand's primary sector. The force that is New Zealand's primary sector, in my mind, needs to ensure that the first sustainability we focus on is the profitability of our farmers' balance sheets first. Joining us now, following the survey of their farmers, is AgFirst agricultural economist Phil Journeaux. Good evening, Phil.
Hi, Sarah. Pleased to be here.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I understand that you had a AgFirst webinar today, and I'd love if you could break down first how you go about measuring the data from your clients in particular to come up with what the state of the nation and, of course, your predictions going forward.
Well, we've been doing the survey for several years. In essence, we monitor 20-25 farms, if you like. We cover dairying across the Waikato Bay of Plenty and sheep and beef farming across the central North Island hill country. So we monitor the farms, so we go out, we collect the financials for the year that's just finished, which is 1920, and then we do a budget for the farmers going for the year ahead, which is 2021. We then have a meeting with a number of industry people just to run through the results and sort of validate the information, if you like, and then we apply them to our model farms, and the model farms are based on the average or the mean statistics for the particular region.
Interesting. We were talking about the class system that Beef and Lamb used to use. I'm not sure if it still uses it in regards to benchmarking. Yeah, the similar, and that's very much taken into account of what you're doing as well for your measurement and in comparison.
Yes.
Yeah, and so therefore, what were some of those results that were coming out sort of startling, or were they sort of on par in comparison to previous years?
Well, if I touch on dairying first, the season just finished was financially, we would call a reasonable year. The model farm ran a profit, paid debt, spent money on capital expenditure and development and that sort of thing. So as I say, a reasonable sort of year. The year coming up, again, very similar. Sarah, last year was hit by the drought, which people understand, but offset by a very good payout. Payout for this year coming has dropped a bit, obviously, but production's come up a bit. So all things being equal, reasonable year past, reasonable year coming up.
Sure.
On the sheep, sorry.
No, continue.
On the sheep and beef side, slightly different story. The year just passed, again, reasonable. The model farm broke even, if you like, and again, some CapEx spending and some debt repayment and that sort of thing. The year coming up, not quite as good, if you like. Really, the impacts of the drought and the impacts of COVID, if you like, in the sense that lambing percent likely to be down, schedules and that also down a bit. Looking to rebuild our cattle numbers because of the drought would sold some more off, if you like. So for the year coming up for our hill country sheep and beef guys, at the moment, we're looking at a reasonable deficit and not spending anything on CapEx and development and that sort of thing.
Really says something about rural business confidence going forward in the sheep and beef sector, if that's anything to go by. I'd love to ask you about this high New Zealand dollar and the effective cost of inputs. Is that coming into play?
Well, excuse me. I mean, I guess it always does, in the sense that if the dollar's high, the schedules and payouts tend to go down, but of course the inputs, fertilizer, etc., fuel, also go down. So I wouldn't say they balance each other out, but there is something of a trade-off between the two.
Okay. And in terms of going back to dairy, that break-even milk price, how's that looking for the OPEX on dairy farms?
Well, again, in the figures we've published over the last few years, in a broad sense, that the break-even payout we need is in the sort of the high $5, $6 per kilogram milk solids bracket. So that covers things like farm working, debt servicing, drawings, depreciation and tax. Over the last 3 years, the payout's been north of $6. So we've been, as I say, operating reasonably well. The expectation is of another payout for this coming year, north of $6. So again, we're above break even. So we have got some money to spend on the farm.
How are you feeling about the levels of debt and debt repayments at the moment with the way interest rates are?
Well, variable impact, I guess, Sarah, certainly the drop in interest rates have helped significantly. And you see that in the model. Our debt repayments, or interest payment, if you like, dropped from, a few years ago, it'd be up around $1.20 a kilo. Now it's about 90 odd cents. So makes a big difference. Certainly, a lot of farms are paying back debt. The banks are toughening up a bit in that respect. Luckily, as I say, we've had quite reasonable payouts for the last few years, so we can afford to do that.
Let's talk about this latest rain in Northland and Hawke's Bay in particular, from one extreme to the other. It's absolutely crazy. How is the soil moisture levels looking, and is it any indication around a positive spring, or has it just completely run off and flooded?
Well, my main comments would really be around the Waikato Bay of Plenty. We've had reasonable rain, nothing as dramatic as Northland, obviously. So the topsoil is wet, mild conditions, the grass is growing quite well. The subsoil, though, is still dry. And in one sense, we need a lot of rain to wet that subsoil. In another sense, we don't really want a lot of rain, aka Northland, because of all the problems that causes. But so at the moment, in a lot of areas, the subsoil is dry. If we get another dry summer, that could or will cause a lot of problems.
As you're sitting down with your farmers planning the year ahead, Phil, what are some of those key things you're making sure they are keeping a close eye on?
Well, in the financial sense, Sarah, generally, I guess, make sure the farm's operating well. You know, they're spending the money they need to in terms of fertiliser and R&M and animal health and all the rest of it. So that the business as a whole is ticking along all right. Assuming you've got a surplus, you're then looking at things, particularly debt servicing. As I say, that's a reasonably hot issue. The next is well, what I call capex in a broad sense. There's a lot of expenditure happening, particularly around environmental compliance on dairy farms. You know, a number of our clients are spending a lot of money upgrading effluent systems and all that sort of thing. They're also taking the opportunity to improve the milking shed, bringing in a bit of technology and all the rest, mainly as sort of labour-saving effort, if you like. But as I say, the key thing really initially is to make sure the farm's operating okay.
Absolutely. Looking after the foundations, Phil, as well.
Exactly, Sarah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much, Phil Journeaux, as agricultural economist for AgFirst, and that's following their annual survey. Of course, end of years, see everyone starting to pore over the columns and rows and work out what and they can predict for the future, because that's really sometimes what it is. Thank you so much, Phil, for joining us.
This is Sarah's Country.